Well, for me, I think scholarship is so vital to what I do, to kind of maintain my energy. And it seems to me, I was actually just having a conversation yesterday with a junior high teacher and talking about teaching in our jobs. And when I talked about doing research projects, and his eyes he kind of went, what are you talking about? And I could tell he was kind of curious and at the same time also maybe a little bit nervous. And I think that gets at maybe how we construct ourselves as teachers, or how we are constructed sometimes by others, that we teach. That somehow there's this thing that we teach, this curriculum that we just kind of, the banking model of teaching, we just move it over to our students somehow. And that we're not engaged in this kind of complex, really messy process. And that if we don't do research, for me, or if we're not involved with other projects, assessment projects, or engaged with the literature, I get overwhelmed with the mess of teaching. That is, that things never work out exactly the way you think they're going to work out. As we were discussing before, you can teach the same thing. We all know this, right? To one class, you give them the exact same information. You engage them in similar ways, you read their work, and yet that one class just, doesn't work out for some reason. And then the other class, it's great. They're staying after class, they're talking to you, they stop by your office. What happened? And emotionally, to me, the only kind of remedy for that, I guess, that is to engage in kind of a theoretical or academic work that helps ground me, helps me recognize on a simple level, I guess, that other people are involved with these kinds of questions. It's not just me, because teaching can be so isolating, I think, where there we are in our own little classroom. And so then research allows me, or thinking about the teacher as scholar, allows me to engage and connect with this larger community. And so there's this kind of like, here I am in my classroom, there's this nice connector, this feeding line that goes out to all these people, first within my department and then to others in other disciplines, and then also nationally or regionally. And then I can feel that kind of connection, feel kind of, for me, bolsters me. I'm in on those conversations.
So you brought an article to the English department about a concept called messy teaching. What is that idea?
Well, part of the idea, and the article came out in a TTYC, and part of the idea is that we often want to kind of foreclose the conversation and move to, okay, I've got a problem, I'm going to efficiently and expediently fix that problem, and now I have a solution. And then often when we talk about our teaching, and I think if you look in the journal, certainly if you look in the journals within composition, there's this kind of hero narrative. And I've noticed in my own writing, in a few pieces that I've worked on, that you start off by talking about this problem, and often it might be complex, and then you work through to, then I did this and this and this, and now the problem's solved. Figured it out. Here you go. Got it on a platter. Implement it in your classroom. And I think there are a couple, really telling problems with that. One is a reader of academic work, which I said earlier can be really engaging. You can read that and say, oh, yeah, I've had this problem. I'm going to implement this in my teaching, and it can turn out to be a wash. You'll say, oh, I'll do that same thing. I struggle too to have students reflect on their writing, and now you have these new activities or a new way of thinking about it or theorizing the assignment, and you do it, and it falls flat. It's worse than what you had before. So that's one danger, I think. When we write stuff like that, that we're presenting teaching in a way that is really about, I guess, making ourselves look like we're accomplished. And it reminds me of the quote they start the article out with, by Parker Palmer, in a broader reference, to teaching. He says, I yearn for the day when I would know my craft so well, be so confident that I could walk into a classroom without feeling afraid. But now I know that day will never come. Which, is really hard to think about. I mean, even if I read it But it's so true. You know, I thought there would be that day when I had tweaked that assignment just enough, and it was just going to work. But it doesn't really happen that way. You know, at least in my experience, it doesn't. And so the idea of messy teaching is that we stay engaged with that messy teaching. We don't close off the conversation. We don't seek out the quick fixes. We don't necessarily represent our teaching in the best light always, but we admit that it's an ongoing thing that we're struggling with.